Uh, we're about to begin now, and I must welcome you all to this session on the circular economy as we look to build a restorative model, new restorative economic model. The concept of a circular economy dates back a fair bit. I mean, the European Commission first talked about it in 1976, but not much has happened on it since then. Although what exactly do you mean by circular economy is now relatively well defined. See, it essentially involves the use of regenerative material wherever possible that can be sent back into the biosphere and brought back into the industrial chain. And also of using technically, what should I say, technical products that can't be broken down that easily in any reasonable time frame, ensuring that they remain in the industrial value chain for as long as possible. Through the use of what is called the 4 Rs, as in repair, reuse, recycle, and of course, the fourth one being, remanufacture actually. Remanufacturing rundown products. That is also part of what is called the circular economy. But so why a circular economy is very clear. For the last 250 years or so of industrialization, we have essentially been on the take, make, and dispose model of industry, wherein our use of resources is highly inefficient. And even today, we don't really use anything that efficiently. Although there are people who worked in that direction, there are companies who have products who have systems and processes dovetail to that purpose, but we are still very far from that because it's not easy to do the 4 Rs. The 4 Rs have to be supplemented by a 5th R, which is called reskilling. You have to reskill your economy for this circular way of thinking, for this circular way of doing business. The 4th R is actually far more important than any of the other 4 Rs because you can develop technology for repair, reuse, remanufacture, recycle, all that. That has been done. But what you need is reskill. Reskilling your mindset, reskilling people to understand how to extend the life of products and to derive services out of products. We have this ownership model in the industrial economy where property rights are well defined and people just want to arbitrage out property rights essentially for gain. But here you have to look at owning a product for much longer and selling the services of it. Now that is not as easy as it sounds. Although in India, there are things like recycle and reuse are very common. You'll find a cobbler in every neighborhood, so it's not a big deal. Although that has vanished in many other parts of the world. So the thing is that then how do you do it? If we don't go into the very basics of how to change the education system, the mindset and all that, we have to look at finance at some level. We have to look at circular economy as a financially viable model. See, today, whatever investment that has happened in circular economy is impact investment or investment by foundations and so on and so forth. There's corporate investment, there is debt, there's also some equity investment, but it's not enough. Because the very way in which we account for projects it does not really lend itself to evaluating the circular economic model properly. You see, you'll have to move out of the linear accounting framework with a finite time scale, and you'll have to look at new models. So it's clear that the role of innovation here is paramount. Role of innovation not just on the technological side, not just on the side of education, not just on the side of skill extension, but on the side of finance as well. In this, we have a very, very, comprehensive panel today who are going to touch upon each of these issues. And I think I'm looking forward to a really innovative session, so to speak. And without any further ado, I'll now yield the floor to our speakers. So let me introduce our speakers one by one. We have today Maxim Grishin, who's sitting on the fourth from your right? And he's country representative, polycarbonates, Russia and CIS, Biomaterial Science. Maxim Grishin oversees the activity of the Department of Polycarbonates, which implements a number of innovative technologies in industries such as automotive and transportation, construction, electrical engineering, food industry, and information technology. He has, of course, worked in the past on a dynamic program created within Bayer AG called Eco-Commercial Building. Besides the program, let me take a look. Sorry for this. He has also been, this program was settled in the context of the global Bayer climatic program, which aimed to influence this CO2 emission. There are more details of the eco-commercial building program, which you can take it with him offline. He's advisor to the chairman of the Federal Inter-Industrial Council of Delovaya, Russia, member of the Advisory Council Working Group of the Legislative Initiatives and Business Support Development to the chairman of State Duma Committee on Energy. So I think he needs no further introduction. We will, let me introduce the other panelists as well before I yield the floor to him. We also have Dr. Elena Smirnova sitting to my immediate left. She has an MS in biology and a PhD in economics. She's Chief Development Officer, Eco Bureau Green Business Consulting Organization. Then we have J. Carl Ganter. He is the Managing Director of Circle of Blue. He's actually the co-founder as well. And Circle of Blue is, of course, the internationally recognized Center for Original Frontline Reporting, Research, and Analysis on Water Resource Issues and their relation to food and energy in a changing climate. Mr. Ganter actually focuses heavily on what is called the energy, food, water nexus, on how these three sectors are highly interconnected with each other. He earned his MSJ in Investigative and Magazine Reporting at Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism. After graduating with honors from the university's American Studies program, he's past vice chairman and current member of the World Economic Forum, Global Agenda Council on Water, and is recipient of the Rockefeller Foundation Centennial Innovation Award. He, of course, has been a reporter and broadcaster of great repute for many years, writing all over the world and traveling all over the world. Then we have also today with us, we have Alexei Vostunov. He's the Business Development Director, Russia, for Frost & Sullivan. He has more than 7 years of research and consulting experience in various activities across industries with a focus on Russia, CIS, and Latin American markets. And he has worked in, his skill set includes energy generation, commercial due diligence for M&A, microelectronics and IT applications. He's worked on business development and other areas for each of these sectors. Prior to joining Frost & Sullivan, Alexei worked for the Russian government and prior to that for PricewaterhouseCoopers Russia, where he was involved in various consulting projects. Alexei has a master's degree in Scientific Technology International Relations from the Moscow Engineering Physics Institute. We then have Andrew Yakimchuk, Managing Partner and Chief Executive Officer, Ecosystem Group of Companies. Andriy Yakimchuk is a Managing Partner and CEO of the Ecosystem Group of Companies since 2008. The ecosystem has been creating an integrated system of waste management for more than 8 years, engaged in control over all stages of waste treatment, starting from collection and transportation to deep processing and receipt of secondary raw materials. The group carries out construction and receipt of secondary raw materials. The group carries out construction and operation of waste sorting plants and modern landfills. Until 2008, Andriy Yakimchuk was the head of the apparatus of the Committee for Industrial Policy of the Federation Council of the Federal Assembly of the Russian Federation, where he dealt with development of legislation in the energy sector, railway transport, housing, and commercial activities. In the past, he has also been, he was responsible for reforming of the RAO UAS of Russia as a Deputy Manager of Corporate Strategy Department. Thank you, Mr. Yakimchuk. Then we have, of course, Blake Burris. He's founder and chairman of the Clean Web Initiative. Burris is founder and chairman of the Clean Web Initiative and chief activist at Winly, a connected car platform for smart mobility solutions. He's a leading expert on hackathons and the creation of grassroots innovation and communities. He actually ran the first Facebook developer garages, a multitude of developer hackathons, and was a pioneer of the co-working movement at Cohabitat. His former startup was the first recipient of Facebook's FB fund in 2008. He stays in Texas with his wife and 3 children, where he enjoys cycling, kayaking, gymnastics, and Central Texas barbecue. Right, that's our panel for today. And I will now yield the floor to Maxim without any delay, and I'll get back to my moderator's seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a big pleasure to be here and have possibility to express opinion based, of course, on the experience. And if colleagues are not against, I would like to switch to Russian due to this topic is relatively important for Russia in order to really bring all expressions which is necessary to all the audience. Уважаемые коллеги, буду рад переключиться, если...
Colleagues, I'm happy to speak Russian and I'm happy to share my opinion. Well, unfortunately, we're still experiencing some problems with the remote control for the slide change. But colleagues, really I would like to speak a little bit about a very important subject for Russia today, which should be really accelerated. And really I appreciate this long introduction. But today I'm talking not only as an expert of the institution I'm working with, but also as a citizen of this country who is not indifferent to what is going to happen to recycling, to the restorative economics, etc. Speaking about the expertise that I will use as the basis for my presentation today, it would be chemistry as one of the main industries where a lot of energy is being consumed, and an industry that can generate a lot of waste that should be taken particular care of when recycled. The Material Science is a company which has for 100 years now been producing polymers and chemical products and has expertise in really researching into how materials are going to be recycled, how they would be impacting our life. So I have a few more slides on this and a few words about trends. The trends are known. Few resources available, the growth of the population in cities, including the growth of urban infrastructure, which is consuming more and more resources and producing more and more waste. This is mobility, the growing number of cars in the world, the digital spaces and trends, and of course the population growth. And we have to live with it, and the old technologies for sure cannot cope with that, and we have to invent new approaches, new systems, and realize that resources are not infinite, and we need to think about recycling or the correct approaches to recycling. Of course, speaking about materials themselves, and we as experts know about them a lot, and I'm talking about polymers that are used in different applications, and this is where we actually develop our ideas and thoughts. Now, speaking about some ideas or trends where we suggest to save a little bit, take LC or 3B, that we are talking about the car industry, where construction, manufacturing can really use materials that are easily recyclable, and we're talking about the food industry, and we're talking about furniture making. This is where we can already today become more efficient than before and are more efficient. There is a motto that we are trying to follow. 3P, people, planet, and profit. A profit for the planet and for people. Why would we choose such an approach? Speaking about the planet, we of course need to reduce the number of resources, the volume of resources we are consuming, and for that we need to really analyze the life cycles of chemical products. Of course, we have major developments in construction, and construction is an industry which is consuming about 40% of all energy and is emitting about 30% of global CO2. And this is where we can indeed have some breakthroughs, and using some LCA technologies, we can already reduce emissions. And of course, we're talking about people. If you're saying which technologies and and systems are going to serve people today and tomorrow, we will see. And if we know about them, then we will be able to cut down on the consumption of various resources. Say, polyurethane, which can be recycled, which can be reused in clothes or shoes, etc. So we need to think and when this or that part of clothes or shoes can be recycled and reused. So we need to think about new people to be involved in our common operations, and these are the values that we are trying to follow in working with our chemicals and polymers. Now, coming closer to our goals, of course, we have our goals and objectives in developing new modern products and looking for new materials. For example, in our chemistry, we use many byproducts of oil. Up to 30% of materials can be used from plants and various biological agents to be added to paleo oil, which is the oil byproduct. We invested about 3 billion euros in new R&D so that such technologies can become widely available. Take construction. When we are still designing a building, we need to be thinking when this building is going to be taken down and which of the structures and components of that building can be reused. Take insulation. It can be 100% reused and used during a new construction project. Now, if you take CO2, then of course we are trying to assess the life cycles of a building, and this way we can reduce CO2 emissions by 40% because you're not using excessive heat for the heating of that house, and then of course you waste a lot of resources and energy which could have been used for new constructions and new developments. Coming to one of the key slides in my presentation, what I would like to draw your attention to is this circular model where we show how we can pass on from some raw inputs to a final model. You have two models, from cradle to grave. That is, we simply utilize such materials, but we're talking about a model which is called from cradle to cradle, where all materials are reused. Now, if at the very beginning we would be thinking how those materials would be reused in future, then of course we won't be able to receive a lot of recycled material which is already integrated in the new inputs. For example, take a look at this slide, and of course you have chemical-based inputs which goes into manufacturing, then you have some finished product, then you have some final use, say in the automotive industry or food industry or construction. Then, of course, you use this material this way or another, and then we can follow the way of some chemical reprocessing. And here we are limited or constrained somewhat, but we can follow another way. We can follow a different cycle to close this loop, and we can reuse polycarbonate or polyurethane to bring them back into the life cycle of production. This is based on our production. Just to demonstrate to which of the products and materials are being used, I'll show you some slides. Here you see some car parts of a European car maker. And of course, you see a bottle, a water bottle. Now, using those water bottles, after we use them for their direct purpose, we can reprocess, recycle all such water bottles, but these water bottles can be fully used to make car parts, bringing new life to a product and, of course, being used by the consumers for a longer time. Of course, this was a very brief presentation. I really want to share a lot with you because this is a huge topic to discuss, but if you have any questions, please, you're welcome.
Right. Thank you, Maxim, for that excellent presentation. We'll take questions later. Maxim Grishin's presentation, of course, was a very good way to start off this session. He focused on the 3 Ps, which is very important. How do you reconcile people with the planet and profit? Probably that's the central question with the circular economy. And he, of course, emphasized a very key role that material science will play in any circular economy. He gave the specific example of polyurethane and how that can be brought back into the industrial chain. He gave the illustrative example of cars, bottles to cars. So it was very informative, brief, and thank you. Thank you for sticking to the time. So we'll now move on to our next speaker, which is Dr. Smirnova. And just a second, Dr. Smirnova. I wasn't able to introduce Dr. Kurt Kaltenegger here because I did not have his bio, although we'll fix that in a bit. He'll speak at the end. He'll speak at the end. Okay, please go.
Добрый день, уважаемые.
Well, good afternoon, dear colleagues. I really appreciate the fact that you came to the session. Since I only have 5 minutes, probably I would speak about 2 aspects of the circular economics. Why do we need that, and what is the target audience of that? Because it's not only the industry that should be involved there. By the way, I have printouts of my presentation, so you can grab a copy. By the way, using recycled paper, another step to circular economy. So why do we need that? Last week, we, for the first time, published in Russian the report Life Planet in green. This is what we really can get from nature, the bio capacity, and we have, of course, the number of the population and the environmental imprint, how much we consume and how much we emit in terms of CO2, how much we consume in terms of mineral resources, be it for the population or for the industry. And this gap between the biocapacity and what is being taken from nature can lead to a collapse. Well, of course, some bacteria and, I don't know, cockroaches would survive. So it's up to the human being to really care to save and to live further. Now, what is going to happen in the immediate future? We're being more and more, we are by 1 billion people more than only quite recently, and we live better and better. We can talk about crises all the time, about economic challenges, etc. But we all living in developed and developing countries have housing. We eat more than we need. We have housing. We have clothes, etc., and we consume more because we have more money, and the middle class is growing very fast. So we use more and more products and commodities with more packaging, and this packaging is becoming more complex, and hence we are producing more waste, which is reprocessed, reused only by margin. And really, we're not caring about challenges and problems that we never think. For example, supermarkets in Moscow really throw away 40% of food that they were not able to sell. it is not being reprocessed and just thrown away. Maxim was speaking about the life cycles of products, but if you analyze a smartphone, the life cycle of a smartphone, an iPhone 5 in this case, that's what the designing stage, delivery, transportation, and the end of life of this iPhone. Where would you use it? You just throw it away to a toxic waste, or would you reuse it? And this way we can really assess environmental risks, but also get some economic profit. Now we also include such an important element into the life cycle as design, as the designing stage, because regardless of whether it's a smartphone or, say, a chair, you still need some design, and this should be included into the life cycle, and this way you can really reduce the environmental impact of any product. We live in some real life, of course, and we understand that there is some movement of crazy environmentalists who suggest that we all need to go back to the caves. Well, we might need such extremists, but we are all also realists, and we really cannot differentiate between economics and the environment. Despite all discussions, the climate is changing. I can give you a classical example, the production of primary or secondary cellulose. We see that if we produce paper from some reused material, we actually save 2 times on wastewater, on other ways, on the CO2 emissions. But if you take aluminum production, we can save 95% of water and energy that we would have otherwise consumed if we produced from scratch. So, of course, we are trying to follow a good example of reducing the environmental impact and getting more money because of higher sales. But we live in a closed world, so we cannot just simply throw away something, as Russian geographer Baranovsky said, we just cannot exit this world. But the target audiences, of course, for the industry, it is important to think about such things as the life cycles and the assessments, certifications, etc. But where do we find people here? We actually have 2 very understandable mechanisms. One, something that we can think as a typical one for the circular economy, and something that is only seemingly so.
So there is a special labeling system, so based on the life cycle. Maxim has already told about it, and there are systems within ISO 14024, Blue Angel, European flowers. These are the goods that you can actually chop and so they're not biodegradable additives, but it's a separate story that definitely damages our soil and everything, though it's being added everywhere. Omni added, and there's some are biodegradable. The secondary recycling science, and the mass media does not write much about it, and the children and youth are not taught about it. So another target groups include children and adolescents, and mass media should do it. Otherwise, we shall just be watching soap operas. I have a dream. If someone helps me, I'll be happy to go to House 2. But we understand that Dom 2 is an absurd show. So you see that 60% of the population actually watch them. What if this 60% would be covered with some environmental movement or cyclic economy, at least with the plastic bags? So it will be amazing coverage. So second aspect is some kind of ignorance of a consumer. It's not their fault. It's the manufacturer's fault and the system fault. There are many signs of environmental certification that have nothing to do with recycling processes or cyclic economy, and like taxes, chances, whatever, greenwashing, when the goods try to mimic the environmentally friendly goods. So industry should target such groups. When people know, people understand, they will really consider and handle those goods and raise the profits. And for the state authorities, it's important because you can create clear picture of the situation. So I hope I'm within my time slot. If you have questions, I will be around, and I have materials to substantiate my speech. Thank you.
Presentation. Alina, of course, highlighted many important things here. She showed that, we are really stressing the biocapacity of our planet by with middle classes everywhere pushing from below. But that is also an opportunity, because the sheer amount of waste being generated now, you actually have economies of scale in doing something with it. So that is a very important example. She gave a very important example of, a very local example of supermarkets in Moscow wasting up to 40% of their retail food. So that is something that could certainly be looked at. And then, of course, there is this whole question of, climate change denial, or on the other side of the spectrum, tree hugging. See, I'll only say one thing. Stuffing 7 billion ignorant consumers in the world's caves is probably an easier, more difficult proposition than solving global warming. Yeah. So we'll now move on to our next speaker, which is, of course, Karl Ganter.
Great, thank you very much. It's great to be here and to be among circulars. So we'll talk about that. Throw up my, there we go, among circulars. So I'm a blue water guy. I also run an organization called Circle of Blue, so that's probably another reason I'm on the panel. So I do run in circles. Even with all the bad news, I think this is a really exciting time. So open innovations, I have to believe that innovation is all about opportunity. It's also all about challenges. It's also about optimism. So really it's about solving these great challenges. So we are here at an exciting time, and we have a huge problem with many of these issues, as we've heard. At the World Economic Forum, every year we publish something called the Global Risks Report, another really exciting report, all the things that we should be worried about. So I thought I'd start here, and particularly around water. Water is number 3 on the list this year of things that we should worry about. And we actually changed one of the letters this year from an I to an E, so water crises rather than water crisis. So when we're talking about the circular economy, I tend to work in the water, food, and energy world, where it's a really, really interlinked connection. You saw this slide a little bit earlier, and I thought I'd put it up again, just because, again, the impacts, then this changes. So we have 1 billion more people. 1 billion of those people, 1/7 of the world's planet, does not have access to clean drinking water right now. So when we talk about the circular economy, it's all about closing the loop. Again, it's about opportunities to affect change. Where there are these big challenges, there are leaks in the system, quite literally. And these are leaks that can be fixed with technology and also with behavioral change. So we're talking about packaged products. There's a huge water footprint in packaged products as well. Again, opportunities to reduce the impacts and to, in a sense, squeeze more opportunity out of the circular economy. So where does this non-circular, where does the linear economy start? I thought I'd tell a little story because I'm a journalist and photographer. So I like to get on the front lines and actually see where this is starting from. So this is a mine in Inner Mongolia in Shilinghat. So this is a mine, this is a coal mine, an open pit coal mine. And it's also a mine where germanium comes from. So if anybody has an iPhone or other sort of electronics, most likely you have some rare earth metals that might have come from this exact mine right here. So when I really want to focus on, again, make these issues personal, I want to find out who is at the core, who's right at the heart, quite literally, of the circular economy. So what I did, flying into Shilinghat, Inner Mongolia, 25 below zero, I found the only taxi outside the airport. And then I went to a spot way off in the distance, way up, let's see if this remote points, it doesn't, way up in the right-hand corner, a little farm, an Inner Mongolian shepherd family. Where do they fit in this economy? So there I met Wu Yun, and Wu Yun's the daughter of an Inner Mongolian shepherd family. And I took her outside to show me where she lived. How does she live? What's her lifestyle like? What's her consumption pattern? Is she a sustainable consumer, so to speak? Well, it's interesting because the external impacts on our life are very obvious. There's a coal mine over one shoulder. There's a coal mine over the other shoulder. There are 4 more coal mines around her home there. The coal mines have taken the water, they've drained their water table, so now Wu Yan and her family have to drive 15 kilometers for water. So you can imagine, again, we talk about closing the loop in circular economy. Imagine the waste of time, the waste of resources that people like Wu Yan are experiencing around the world. It's really quite remarkable. Again, huge points of waste in the system. So this is a downward spiral or more of a linear economy. How do you turn that around? Well, Wu Yan, when I first met her 4 years ago, she was focused intensely on becoming an accountant so that she could open a fashion shop and sell clothing to the wives of the coal miners. So the irony really sat heavily on me because she was going to become part of this consumptive economy, really just because of situations and her dream. We talk about the circular economy, we also have to talk about our values and our dreams and our expectations as human beings on the planet. So when I went back 2 years later, Wu Yan took me out to the grasslands, and this is her sister's in-laws plot or area. We stayed in a gur, one of the round yurts, and she took me out at sunrise to see the sunrise. And there were these ripples of sand marching across Inner Mongolia. Well, where were they coming from? Climate change is drying the grasslands, the coal mines are taking the water, and now she's becoming much more environmentally active, and she understands closing the loop. She's now working at the local hospital, but she's also involved in climate change issues because she feels it every day. So we're seeing behavioral shifts, particularly in the millennial generation. So she texted me the other day and sent me some pictures. I was just there 4 weeks ago again. The coal mines are getting much closer to their home. So why do we care? Well, when we put this up on a chart, up on a graph, we're seeing mass increases in the prices of commodities. So we're seeing the incentive, again, the economic incentive to close the loop, become much more efficient. And so what happens when that happens? We're going from an extractive, these big coal mines. Will we even need coal mines in the future? Will we even need raw material mines in the future? As Bill McDonough says, we can close the loop. We may not have to be an extractive economy anymore because we've already made everything that we need to survive if we're much more efficient. Think about that. That's pretty exciting when we talk about optimism. And we talk about also a new shift in how we understand materials. So this is carpet from a company called Deso. Now Deso is trying to change the way that people manage and maintain their products. So Deso is actually renting or leasing carpet to their customers rather than selling it. Talk about a behavioral change. Imagine going to your procurement department and saying, we're going to rent our carpet for our 6 floors in the building rather than buy it. That's a strange conversation to have, but once they start to understand it, and then Deso gets the carpet back in 10 years, and material is incredibly valuable. So they don't downcycle it, they cross-cycle it. They turn it into new carpeting. So pretty exciting. We mentioned a little bit about the World Economic Forum. What's happening now? Well, we are here in a really exciting time. This is an inflection point. We have different paths to go, but right now we have a key moment in history, and that is pushing toward the circular economy. And so what's happening in Davos this year? The World Economic Forum and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation announced the Circulars and the Circular Economy Initiative. So it's a really exciting time, and it's worth reading the report. It's also worth following this whole, as they call it, the CE, the Circular Economy movement. And who's a member of this? Well, if your company's not up here, you should be. And you probably will be in the future because the economic gains are massive, and also, of course, the corporate responsibility and the reputational risk of not participating is huge. So moving forward, I'd recommend if you have great ideas or doing great work, check out thecirculars.org. It's a competition. Who's leading the charge? Who's leading the charge in entrepreneurship? Who's pioneering in digital and in cities? So it's a really good way to either listen or even participate in the conversation. And of course, I have to bring it back to water because I do run in circles. And so in the circular economy, I would hope you would let us know how we can participate better or what you're doing by using #NoWater. Thank you.
So, once again, thank you, Carl. for the presentation on just how the community is developing around the circular model. And I must commend your photographic skills, of course, for bringing to light, making the political economy a personal economic question with those images of Zillenhot. And of course, as he said, there has been a commodities boom underway since the beginning of the 2000s. And even though prices may be, softening right now, they may get back right up there again, with India resuming its growth path. So this is a very crucial question, and closing the circle with, with all the overground resources already, all the stuff we've already extracted is very important. All right. Now we'll move on to Alexei. We yield the floor to him.
Hi. Just like my colleagues, I would like to switch to Russian if there is translation. So speaking about the circular economy, yes, indeed, we spoke at length about the authorities. The authorities speak about the challenges, and the society discuss the consumption concepts and the production concepts need to be changed. Otherwise, we are facing a kind of food and environmental disaster, on the verge of disaster if we don't change the models. So the future is unveiling, in front of us. On one hand, the population is growing, consumption is growing. The middle class is growing, consumption is going up. They have more money and they consume sometimes without thinking, but there are positive signals too. Like any consultant, I prepared some slides, but we'll be talking about different things. And the society needs to think. And let me show you what stands behind the consumption patterns change. And a serious business can support it. We see the businesses actually getting hold of it and putting this issue on the front burner. And you can touch this. And it's clear that the linear economy model cannot cope with the modern challenges. So the society and the entrepreneurs demand more and more. We consume more and more, but the resources are finite. And there are a number of solutions that are available, and my colleagues described some of them. And they allow to switch and to abandon the conventional models and switch to the new models of consumption. So let me just give you a few numbers. According to our estimate, it's only a change in food consumption modeling can allow you to save up to $700 billion. And speaking about the recycling and waste recycling market, again, the market size is from 1 trillion to 1.5, almost 2 trillions. And a specific example, in the UK, $1.5 billion are being saved right now, already are being saved, because the companies actually use the new models of waste recycling. And as for the new business models, again, the ownership model concept can be substituted by the concept of co-sharing. That is, rent, co-ownership, co-sharing, co-use of different things. So co-sharing is one of the most popular, and it's actually rooting in Russia. So the gas and the parking lots are getting more expensive, and now in Russia we have co-sharing companies. So this case seems to be very simple and clear-cut. We know that transportation is the main source of pollution, not the manufacturing facilities, but everyday cars that we use and their exhaust. So that's what I say. With co-sharing, there is also closer sharing. Sounds quite naive, but such models do exist in Malaysia, in other countries, and they seem to be working. Sharing goods, residential areas. I'm not saying that's absolutely applicable here for all groups of population, but once we look at the number of people who do not have simple potable water or clothes or food, for them, this business model could solve their issues and bring some profits. On the other hand, the power industry for Russia is one of the industries with high opportunities, capacity for change. In everything, including manufacturers, they're virtually infinite. So there were many disputes everywhere about the shale gas, shale oil, and it is still a case in point. On one hand, pollution. On the other hand, the cheaper source of energy, as we see, facilitate the economic growth in the United States, so they grow at the double-digit rates. So a number of companies working in shales achieve success in by industries extracting gold, zinc, titanium from shale sands, so-called titanium tailings. We know all those rare metals are expensive and used in high-tech manufacturing processes, and we see now many cases of Canadian, Asian, American companies who do business and good business, and capitalization comes up to double digit, triple digits, and millions of dollars, and that's where I would like to stop. Along with the new concept of production and consumption, should be grounded on specific ideas, and this business, this process should be economically viable and lucrative, and we see cases, proofs of that it's possible, and just the state and the entrepreneurs should make the next step to change the mentality, to change the perception. Thank you very much.
Critical analyst perspective on the energy and manufacturing sectors. Alexei, of course, gave some very important numbers over there, which show the sheer economic opportunity that's involved, even if you harness a part of that. And the other thing is that his comments were, of course, very important for Russia, which is trying to rebalance its economy and the direction that Russia can take in terms of, CO2-based polymers, solid-based upcycling, and, of course, even atmospheric water generation. That's, of course, something that the whole world could do. And then he touched upon how, he called it the sharing is caring model, how co-sharing, which is a very important part of circular economic model concepts, and co-ownership, because the very notion of ownership has to change inside when you talk about a circular economy. It's very good if big corporations are now beginning to look seriously at these things, because that is what will make change faster. Right. We'll now move on to our next speaker, Dr. Yakim Chuk, and.
Good afternoon. I would actually clarify. I'm not a doctor. I'm a manager and co-owner of a large company in waste management. I understand we have here mainly academic people and consulting organizations, and I'm standing on the other side of the process called innovations. I'm a customer of such technologies. So who are we? What are we? Our ecosystem is a large company in the management market, waste management market, for the last 8 years, and we work. Our partners are Sberbank, European Bank, and IFC and Skolkovo companies in 6 regions with cover over 5 million people that we service, and we're moving to scale our project up. We keep developing, and our target state in 2019 is to expand to double our coverage. What does it mean for us? It means that by 2019 we shall service over 20 million people and recycle over 50 million tons of waste. And we do it in order to get enough, a sufficient base to use the latest technologies. Unfortunately, today, the existing models of recycling require huge capex and scale of recycling materials. So this is a restriction for us. We understand that we need to build efficient recycling facility, and for that we need to go a long way and to build some 15 facilities with cumulative processing power of approximately 200 million euros, with the investment of 200 million euros, and only that way we're getting the necessary coverage, the raw materials for the proper load. So we have seen such models in Russia. They're successful, but today they do not have enough volumes. In Russia, virtually nothing is recycled except metal, plastics, and paper. So all the rest is, well, are individual cases outside of trends and outside of investors' interest, because I need to understand where I can take it and how I'm going to sell. And there's no way. Unfortunately, the trend is simple. First, you have the political reform, then incomplete and partial economic reforms, then some models that exist in Russia, and then the private capital that came into the waste management business. And now this private capital creates recycling and sorting facilities, sorting and recycling facilities, and only after they accumulate the necessary volumes of products to recycle can they set up a large scalable facility. When I was coming here, I wanted to talk to the regulators from the innovators, and as usual I saw no regulators here, so the government is not interested. Probably the government doesn't care, and probably it's the way it should be, but at least I want not to be undisturbed. But that's what our government mainly is doing, trying to prevent our successful activities, but not well. For what we need is for scalable recycling industry, we require at least a ban on burying the unsorted garbage.
We're talking about very small investment and some political will, and I think that even the Ministry for the Environment and the Mineral Resources can do so using its in-house capacity. As far as innovators are concerned, we're talking here about academics present, and perhaps we need to have some investment climate for the innovations, but something that we have been lacking and still are lacking. What I would like to tell those that are innovating in the area of green technology is something that we're going to procure any technologies that can be mass scale, and such mass scale technologies really need to be focused on small volumes of recycling. On average, technology should be profitable at the scale of 100,000, 200,000 residents city. You can't really hope only for Moscow. So we are talking about small-scale focus and cheap technologies. Empirically, we have concluded that the maximum volume of investment per capita into recycling cannot exceed 25 euros. In other words, if we are coming to a market with reusable and recyclable materials, we understand that a city with a population of 100,000 people will not become a profitable recycling project unless we spend 25 euros per capita. And I think that this is a good goal for the investment community and for the innovative community as well. So that's all I wanted really to say, and something as a separate challenge to the innovative community is that today we have a number of immature composite materials for the market. Unfortunately, in Russia, we produce composites from raw materials, but very few of them are being produced from recyclable materials. But I think that using composite materials, we can really achieve enough value for economic profitability of recycling. And as a separate task that we really need to follow, something where we would invest money and also time and effort, and I'm talking about education. Education of both children and some governmental officials. To give an example, last year I met one of the governors of one of the key resource provinces of Russia, and we met with a big producer of glass. And that production is using a lot of recyclable glass. And we actually were talking about how to build a good plant to recycle glass, etc. And the governor finally said that, would you please don't translate this to your foreign colleague. And the governor said, I'm personally not going to wash bottles. I don't need this secondary glass because I have plenty of raw materials for glass production. That's what sits in the heads of those governmental officials because they are more oriented towards their own personal KPIs, meaning the processing and manufacturing using raw materials, primary materials. Unless this changes, we won't be able to get some success. Thank you.
Mr. Yakimchuk. And of course, his presentation was from the point of view of a customer, and he talked about the hard numbers that are at work here, especially in terms of the scale issue, because recycling, as he said, has to work for cities which only have a population of 100,000 or 200,000, and not just mega cities. He also talked about the fact that not much is recycled in Russia except metal, plastics, and paper at the moment. So I guess that is something that is going to change in the future. He talked about investment per capita that would do so, 25 euros per capita. So interesting, and a very hardcore kind of presentation, which focused on capex scale and similar issues. So now we'll move on to Blake Burris, who will talk about the educative side of it more.
All right, I think we're running out of time, so I will try to be fast. So I haven't ever really thought about the circular economy much. It's not something that we really subscribe to in the clean web world, but it's very much a part, I think the output of the clean web has been very much a part of the circular economy. So a lot of things that these guys have said really resonated with me and my work over the last 3 years, building this so-called clean web movement. Which has really been about activating entrepreneurs around the world to care about resource issues. In fact, Sunil Paul, venture capitalist in California, who coined the word clean web, he said his vision was that clean web would become the biggest lever that entrepreneurs had for solving resource issues. And much of the issues these guys are talking about are big companies and big supply chains and whole countries, and the problems across these sectors are really too complicated for me and most of the entrepreneurs that I know. But interestingly, they've created some very unique companies that are worth billions and billions of dollars now. So I'm going to walk you through a few of those real quickly and describe what we do. Does anyone know what a hacktivist is, by the way? Hacktivist? Has anybody participated in a hackathon? Okay, one fan out here. Well, hackathons have been proven to be a great mechanism for engaging people in solving problems in a very quick, very compressed amount of time. In fact, hackathons in partnership with Startup America is actually part of, not Startup America, rather Startup Weekend and Up Global is kind of a part of the American foreign policy now to inspire entrepreneurs around the world to solve big problems that create economic growth and ideally environmental impact. So Clean Web is about using all the technology we carry in our hand, we carry in our iPads, social web, and various IT technologies to impact resource issues. And in doing so, we're actually disrupting very diverse sectors, from housing and transportation to energy and food. I know some of these issues don't really resonate in Russia as strongly as they do elsewhere, but one issue we found is very well received here is the idea of improving transportation or mobility solutions. So we're actually working, I was here 2 months ago, and we worked with, met with Skolkovo and the US Embassy and Moscow State University and others in the startup community here about putting on a hackathon in April and May here in Moscow to get entrepreneurs focused on technology solutions to transportation. And we actually held the first meetup last night in Moscow at Tech Innovation Hub here in town, focused on the connected car. So getting entrepreneurs, we had about 40 people there, and we expect that to grow to about 200 over the next few months. I got my start, I'm just going to skip over this real quickly, but my start is, as we mentioned on the introductions, working in the energy space through Google Power Meter. This is about 4 or 5 years old now, unfortunately, but it was a big failure. But what I found in doing so is when I was talking about energy efficiency and raising the awareness of energy in consumers' minds, much less trying to engage them through technology to care about the energy consumption, I didn't have very good reception with venture community in the US. They said, this sounds a lot like, we don't understand this, this sounds like clean technology, but clean tech has traditionally meant very large capital investments, very long time to scale, and we were talking about applications on the mobile phone that would engage consumers to change the behavior. I'll skip past some of this. I couldn't change my slides, so that's why you're seeing a few extra. We're actually talking about clean web being at the intersection of sensor data, some of the things guys here have talked about, mobile data, mobile web, and being able to combine these things in a way that creates newfound solutions. And as opposed to clean technology and its history, information technology, when applied across these technology tools and sectors, is quick to scale, requires very little capital. It very much fits the lean startup methodology that's so popular in the technology startup world. And you can actually get a product in the market on the App Store and in the hands of tens of thousands of users before you know if you need a lot of money to scale the company. And a great case in this sector is Uber, a company valued at last last infusion of capital at $18 billion. It's an easy way for us to get around town. It works as well here as it does in San Francisco. I used it to get to the conference yesterday. And in a way, you might say this is just kind of a fancy taxi service. But in actuality, they're actually making better use of the resources that are on the road, and in many cases enabling the millennial generation in many cities to skip the whole car ownership. In America, it's a dream to get your driver's license, but driver's licenses are at a historical low now. The auto manufacturers are kind of wondering where that next wave of purchases are going to come from, and these younger generation have actually realized that they'd rather keep that $900 a month in their pocket and spend it on other things, maybe like the new iPhone. An example of some of these pioneering startups, as we call them, are Airbnb, acquired by Google, Airbnb, which is still on the market, Nest, acquired by Google, and the Israeli startup Waze, which is also in the transportation space, as is Sidecar, which is a ride-sharing company. Why we do meetups like we did last night here in Moscow, we've also been working with groups like in New York City's Economic Development Corporation to put on a clean web track at NYC Big Apps last year across key sectors such as solar adoption, energy efficiency, food waste, and climate resiliency. So this idea plays to the circular economy because we're trying to get people to avoid, actually in the restaurant business, to avoid the creation of food waste in the first place. Maybe using social tools like Foursquare and Facebook to better project how many customers a restaurant may get in any given day. The Clean Web is a community spanning about 20 countries today. We have partners in Israel, in California, in Hawaii, Boston, around Europe, and starting to form relationships here in Russia. And at the core of it, we're talking to entrepreneurs, about addressing the key issues. And these issues ring true in any city in the world. As many of these guys have elaborated, water, these aren't the first things that I think technology entrepreneurs think about because they're not the tree hugger generation necessarily. We're trying to get entrepreneurs that are building any kind of app you use on your phone to care about these issues. And entrepreneurs care about these issues because they can make a bunch of money if they create a solution that can address them. And these solutions created for Nairobi can be adapted for other markets in the first world. And the goal is to reduce emissions, reduce water dependency, reduce waste, and address climate resiliency, so we can have a more livable and sustainable city. And we found this idea, this gospel of Clean Web is selling around the world. And we're finding entrepreneurs are self-associating with the Clean Web, with the hashtag on their profiles on Twitter and elsewhere. And we're building bridges between the city halls and the entrepreneurial community. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert, for that compressed presentation. So, of course, the presentation is very important. It's very central to the circular economy because, we literally have to create the software that is necessary for leveraging the circular economy. And all the things that we talk about, change in the social mind space, using less capex, and he talked about being quick to market, quick to scale. All those things have to, at some point, leverage information technology for it to work. And because we literally have to create an app for the circular economy, and hopefully things will move in that direction. Right. We will now go to our next speaker. And I would invite Kurt Kaltenegger to take the floor. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I came in quite late to the panel, therefore my CV was even not available. And I will have no slides for you, but I will tell you our story. I think that's more important than just giving a lecture here. I will tell you our vision, our company vision, and that you understand why that fits very well what we are discussing here. Quite short to my own person, I have a PhD in physics, and I'm since more than 20 years with ABB. ABB is a global company, and I'm in different roles since very long time as a technology manager. Was 3 years in China as well, built up the research there for ABB China, was CTO in China for ABB. And since 4 years, I'm head of technology for ABB Technology Ventures. And in ABB Technology Ventures, we are scouting for new technologies, especially technologies what fit very well to what we discuss here today. I could say in the clean tech area, but as we have seen here, the four 4 points as well. It's in the water, it's in waste handling, it's in transportation, and it's in electric energy. So, but what's our story in ABB? We have products in power and automation. So how does that fit to what we discuss here today? Power, that's a lot what is used, so it doesn't really fit here, I think, and automation as well, not maybe. But let's look deeper, and that's exactly the message what I want to give here is we are looking how we can do it better, more efficient. If we look to our vision, our company mission and vision says power and productivity for a better world. So we are looking to have sustainable products for a better world. Power, we want to use power much more efficient than it's used today. If you look how power is produced from the generation from primary energy, from coal, for example, or from oil, till the end user, where you use it in an electromotor maybe, where you drill a hole or use it for a pump, you lose more than 50% of the energy on the way. So we are looking for technologies that we don't lose this energy on the way. And the good message here is it's available today already. There are technologies, if we would use everywhere the today's technologies, not only from our company, but of course we have technologies as well there, then you could reduce it that much less energy would be lost on the way from the production to the end. And that's where we are looking so much, and that's our point here, what I have in the discussion. It's, of course, recycling, we look in the how we design things. I think it's important to look how to design things that you can recycle later on. So we are looking how much metal, for example, is in, how can it be reused later on. But it's not only recycling, it's the reuse of things as well. How to use things and appliances, what you have today, machines in a better way, more efficient. Yeah, of course, if you use an electromotor, you waste a lot of energy again. It's like when you go with the car, you brake and give gas at the same time. So that's how you control an electromotor today. But if you use a modern drive technology, then you save a lot of energy again. And if you buy a drive for your old motor, you have a payback from a few months only. So it shows technologies are already available. But there are still some barriers to bring these technologies to CEOs from companies that they make decisions. Yes, we put a drive to our electromotors. And very often we hear this contradiction. Do you want to save energy or do you want to save money? And this is a good example, I think, and that's exactly where we are looking for new technologies, where we give an incentive to those who use these new technologies, or these technologies which are already available. So if you buy a drive, you have a payback of 2-3 months, and then you save money as well. So there is an incentive behind. So it's not always a contradiction on that. And what we have as well, of course, is the other side, is the automation side. So making things more efficient. So that you can do something where you waste today energy, where you waste maybe material, that you can do it in a much more efficient way. And there is no contradiction either. If you look to this complete new technologies like 3D printing, in a 3D printing process, you use just the material you need. You have no scrap. Or let us look what's available today already for industrial production. If you use a robot, you have no scrap. You have much less energy need than if you use not a robot. Okay, you will say that's an investment again. But even in a country like China, where the costs for employees are very, very low, labor rates are very, very low, the payback for a robot is less than 2 years. Because you can use the robot 24 hours, much less scrap rate, or no scrap rate at all. So there is a payback, there is an incentive. We just have to use the technologies which are available today. And from my own job, I can see that in our company, we can do even more and better in future using these new kinds of technologies like big data, Internet of Everything, or 3D printing. where we can do things in a much more efficient way. So efficiency is really the key point. And we have heard today already from growing population, so we have really to change something. But as a last word, I'm not afraid of the growing population, and that's, the growth rate is anyhow slowing down. We are afraid more from what is changing on the demand side. Those people who have maybe no electricity today, there we have to bring solar energy, for example, wind energy. For those people who have maybe just a light bulb today, and they want to have a washing machine tomorrow and a refrigerator tomorrow, those people, we have to bring the right technology to save energy. Those who have today a refrigerator want to have a TV set tomorrow, and more, so the demand is growing. That's exactly where we have to have the right technologies to solve that problems. And that's where we try to work as well in our company with productivity and power for a better world. Okay, that's all I wanted to say here.
Thank you, Dr. Kaltenegger. Dr. Kaltenegger has, of course, stressed on the energy balance of various systems in manufacturing, especially in manufacturing, and he's talked about the trade-off between energy and money. He, of course, he made a case for automation with a two-year payback time. And, of course, it is important to know that there are available technologies that can facilitate some of these circular economic models that we're talking about. So, excellent. So we come to the end of the part where our panelists have made their initial statements. Now we will yield to our floor to our experts. We have two experts here today. And they are requested to make very brief comments, and they are mostly supposed to ask questions to the panelists, right? So our first expert today is Sergei Arkhipov. And just a second, I'll introduce you a bit, sir.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so he's Chief Innovation Officer, OMZ Group, United Heavy Machinery Plants, that is. And of course, before joining OMZ, Sergei was a successful clean tech entrepreneur, a winner of the semi-final at the Clean Tech Open 2010, a US nationwide clean tech business plan competition. He graduated from MIT and Harvard in 2010. He focused on energy security and policy at Harvard and on energy technology and entrepreneurship at MIT. Thank you.
Буквально обратиться к некоторым переживаниям некоторых панелистов. Хочу отметить, что
Just to alleviate the concerns of some of the panelists, just to tell you that while we were discussing and debating clean tech technologies, we actually had the first finals of Clean Tech Russia competition. We received about 300 bids. We chose 3 finalists, and they would be going to the US Clean Tech Open competition this year. So the importance is not only popularizing clean technologies on the part of the government or big corporations. It is important to have some support to entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial spirit for those who offer such new innovative solutions. Since Clean Tech of Russia is a non-for-profit organization, we would like business and consulting institutions to help us with words, with support or money. Clean tech is already in Russia, and I urge all of you to join in and actively support us. Thank you. So, Rafa, you don't need to really. Okay.
Меня зовут Антон Чупилко.
Russian Carbon, Anton Chopilko. I have a brief question. So we discussed many questions, big scales, big projects, but we all understand that throughout human history, the creation of closed systems was really about limitations on consumptions, be it slavery, the Soviet Union, or some China experience. Since we're talking about, I'm thinking about my next session that I'm going to moderate, the world after oil. My question is whether the world is is okay with introducing some constraints and limitations on consumptions. Just, you may say yes or no, or maybe provide some additional comments.
Question first. Right. Thank you, Alina.
Поскольку я первая сижу, я могу первой Антону ответить.
I'm here first, so I can respond first. It's like the classical Schrödinger questions, but the only mechanism that can work is governmental control, because economically limiting consumption, and Anton was asking about today, it is simply impossible to do it economically. It can only be done by governmental instruction, I think. Maybe in 20 years' time it would happen. One other thing, we're not only talking about limiting consumption, but also changing the very structure of consumption. Well, self-constraints is really a very difficult challenge to almost all people. But if you change the structure of consumption through governmental influence, through corporate influence, then why not? Maybe we can hope for that. Let me also reply to this. I think it's a good question. Indeed, how would you agree to something that people don't understand or don't know? I mean, how people would agree with that? It is impossible. But people who understand it and have resources to substitute, of course, would be open to accept such self-limitations or self-constraints.
But we are at this point, this inflection point. We heard about Uber, we heard about apps, we heard about the millennial generation. So I think that the belief systems and the value systems and what we value going forward, that's changing really quickly. And it's part of our role to ride that change, to develop the killer app, to pick up that momentum.
Okay. Да, но поскольку я представляю
Since I represent here the entrepreneurial community, the business community here, so myself as an entrepreneur, I believe that, of course, you're only limited by the lack of courage in your greed. So self-limitations or self-constraints are possible, but only if they are very terrible or very expensive. For very terrible, it is the government stake. For very expensive, it is the business stakes.
Take our example, and of course we can see regulation and government that can move a lot, but that's an alternative people take, but they don't like it, I think. So what you have to do is you have to make something incentivizing that, and what we are doing is we combine it with another value, either with cost saving, or we say, okay, if you take this technology, you have more comfort or more safety, because comfort is a driver. If people can, in their home automation system, for example, have more comfort, but at the same time energy saving, then it's fine, then they take it. So combining with some incentives which they like, because otherwise they always will take the alternatives which are maybe not the right ones.
I didn't hear the question, but I'll assume it's something about how do we motivate people to change their behaviors and become more efficient.
Yeah, more or less.
Is that about right? I've been getting the Russian translation here. So in our world of clean web, we're trying to make energy kind of sexy, or the idea of being a clean web entrepreneur fun. And it's really kind of ringing true. In fact, the T-shirt from Tesla Camp recently in Kyiv says, energy geeks are sexy. and on the consumer side, I use the Facebook example, and I failed to mention, the creation of this Clean Web Initiative was founded by Facebook, American Clean Skies Foundation, and others. But Bill Weil, who was formerly Energy Czar at Google, he moved to Facebook because of the opportunity not only to work on big Facebook data center projects within the four walls of the company, but also using the 1.5 billion members of the network to create massive social change, because he is an environmentalist. And he saw that as the biggest opportunity to create gains across these key sectors. And that's some of the tools that our entrepreneurs building apps like Waze and Nest and whatnot are using, that social reinforcement and engagement through Facebook and other platforms to kind of virally spread this idea of efficiency.
Right. Anybody from the audience who wishes to ask the panelists any question is free to do so. Welcome to do so.
We got one over here. Other side of the room.
Okay. we have a question there. Lady in blue.
Good morning. My name is Georgette Yakman, and I run an international education platform called STEAM Education. To me, it is critical to bridge government, business, and young children. They influence their parents and their consumption. They understand what the real problem is. They have to inherit this world. So especially for the government representative, the businesses representatives, how many of you are actively engaging in the kindergarten through 12th grade children? And one of the projects I do with them is I have them create their own businesses and create products that are sustainable. And it's working. The children are putting the pressure on the parents. So I wanted to get your impact or your answer to if you're doing something actively and what you're thinking of that concept.
Right, Alina, please go ahead.
So a brief answer, because this is a long story. 30% of our projects anyway are in children education lower than K-12. School children, and we don't work with babies, but this is a conscious choice, and in carrying out a large number of educational projects with businesses and government and on our own.
But we have encouraged college students to come to a lot of events we have. Some of them bring buses of kids and whatnot, and generally encouraging that this is an emerging opportunity. And you hear a lot of this in the solar sector, for instance, in the U.S., where they're saying that's where the job growth is. There's all these renewable energy jobs, so kids can start thinking about direction, things that take them in that direction, but not education per se. It's much needed.
Yeah, and I think it is all about engaging the kids. And as a journalist, whether I'm in India, whether I'm in the US or China, we are seeing people engage. I mean, there's a whole movement in China, something called the China Dream. And how do you shift these expectations of the next generation and the next generation? And I think that's the way to do that. And I think that's a really good opportunity for all of us, is to really start young. But we're seeing it happen, because we're seeing it happen with technology. Everybody has an iPhone. Even in Inner Mongolia, they have iPhone 5s. So we are using Google Translate to communicate in the middle of nowhere.
Any more questions? Right. I guess we're done for the day, and I think I'll have to sum up the session now. Well, it's very clear that when you talk about the circular economy, you're not just talking about sustainable value creation, but you're also talking about creating value on a sustained basis. And how do you do that? These goals are not necessarily, coincident at all points in time. This is actually the context in which we have to go forward. Now, it is quite clear to me that, all our panelists know that we are dealing with a world where the numbers have increased greatly since the beginning of the industrial age. Chemical farming has played a role in that, if I take a neo-Malthusian proposition here. And the thing is that has thrown its own set of challenges that we've never dealt with. We are having to deal with that in a very short time frame. And that is where the role of information technology is crucial. Because you very literally have to catch them young, as we've been talking about, because mindset change doesn't really happen once you cross a certain age, perhaps, but it can happen when people are still, being raised. But for that, you need awareness. So you have also, essentially, circular economy then devolves into a very broad pattern. And how do you bring together all that? That is where the role of governments becomes key. While it is true that, many economies of the world today are almost three quarters of many economies today are in the hands of the private sector. But the government still has a very important, both indicative and directive role to play. And so perhaps changing the mindset of the policymakers is very important. In a world where you have poke barrel funding, how to make clean technology and circular economy sexy is a very important question, as my friend Blake Blood has put it. So we have to look at those issues. But it's very clear, whether it be material science, whether it be the energy balance in manufacturing systems, whether it be looking at new models for co-sharing, co-ownership, whether it be looking at financial innovation. The value of innovation in the years ahead will be increasingly judged by what it does for the circular economy. For instance, when you look at another generation of iPhone, you're still using hydrocarbon-based plastics, and you're still using rare earths that are going into that, which are becoming more and more difficult to mine from the energy balance perspective. So very real costs are involved, all of which are imputed from the iPhone. So the value of innovation, what really is innovation, that the soul of innovation will come from the circular economic model, in my opinion. And I would like to conclude this session now, and I must thank all our panelists, our experts, and the audience for bearing with us. And we conclude now. Thank you.